There's Chris. He's back. Hey, Chris. You back,
Go ahead,
Chris?
Kyoki. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to HSTA's live Facebook news conference. You can watch us on our Facebook live or also on YouTube, and this will be able to see it later as it's saved. We're asking that you not put questions in the chat. Those will not be responded to. We just want to make sure that as this press conference is going on, that you had a chance to observe. I will also share that for all of the teachers that an email went out to you earlier. We will be giving two statements, first by myself, Corey Rosenlee, the president of HSTA, and then by Osa Tui Jr., our vice president. After that, we will be taking questions from reporters. So with that, we will begin with our written statements. So first of all, again, I'm Corey Rosenlee, president of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. In the last few days, we have seen the growing number of coronavirus cases in Hawaii, with Hawaii having the second highest growth rate in the country. During this time, the public and teachers have watched with astonishment while Hawaii is shutting down and Oahu is closing its beaches and bowling alleys. There is still a push to try to open our schools to face-to-face learning. Hawaii can no longer pretend we are not in the middle of a pandemic and that somehow our keiki and our teachers are impervious to this virus. As a result of this situation, last night, HSTA Board of Directors voted unanimously to support Hawaii's public schools going to 100% distance learning starting August 17th and continuing until the end of the first quarter, or until such time that public schools are safe for students, teachers, and staff to be together on campuses. HSTA also calls on the Hawaii State Department of Health to provide clear written guidance regarding the rate of positive coronavirus tests, community spread, and metrics to determine the ability of schools to resume in-person instruction in a safe manner. For weeks, HSTA has asked the state to provide specific triggers when it would be safe to open schools, and conversely, when school buildings, campuses, or the entire system should close. So far, the state has not provided parents, students, and employees with those critical plans that many states and cities across the country have long had in place. HSTA is asking Governor Ige, Superintendent Kishimoto, the Board of Education, and the Department of Health to take immediate action to protect the lives and safety and the health of our keiki, our teachers, our school staff, and our community. As teachers, we know how important education is, but we are most concerned about the lives of every one of our students. Online classwork cannot replace face-to-face learning, but it ensures that learning continues and that our keiki and our communities remain safe. In the last few days, there has been growing support to move to distance learning. All of our neighbor island mayors asked the governor to close schools and universities for 28 days. Dr. Scott Miskovich, a senior advisor on Lieutenant Governor Green's COVID-19 task force, said it is not the right time for children to go back to the classroom. And Health Director Bruce Anderson recently said, "We can't open our schools if our community isn't healthy. You're just asking for disaster." HSTA agrees that we are heading for disaster if we try to move to face-to-face learning. Across the nation, we have already seen the majority of the largest school districts move to 100% distance learning. HSTA research has shown that over 30% of our teachers are at a higher risk for contracting this disease. Many of these teachers have considered retiring or taking leave if they feel our schools are not safe. Going to distance learning will ensure we keep our keiki safe and retain these teachers. As a community, we must all take action to care for each other and to end this horrible virus that is ravaging our community. the teachers of Hawaii, even as we transition to distance learning, are here for our keiki and for our community. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Vice President, Osatui, with his remarks.
Hello, everyone. Osatui, Vice President of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. We're thankful that the Board of Ed listened to the education community when we said that additional time was needed to prepare for when our schools might need to shut their doors. Unfortunately, that time has come upon us much sooner than we had hoped. The only way we're going to beat this pandemic is to continue with best practices, because now we know firsthand the consequences if we do not. To think that our young children are going to remain in a bubble of fantasy that is easily popped. For our older kids, we see now on the mainland how their desire to be with friends again makes them throw caution to the wind. We saw with students very well distanced during summer school that there were still 6 cases for 8,000 students. What will happen when we get to 180,000 students? Teachers at my school are already putting in for retirement come September 1st because they're just not comfortable with the lack of assurances for their safety. So many more are going to leave as the department continues to deny Americans with Disability Act accommodation requests. We're already in a teacher shortage crisis, and now we're looking at a teacher shortage catastrophe. We asked the governor, the superintendent, and the Board of Education to do the right thing and start the school year as safely as possible with 100% distance learning. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Osatui, who is the McKinley High School Registrar and HSTA Vice President. And now, reporters, if you can just put your name and organization over in the chat, we will start calling on you so you can ask your questions. We welcome our members and the public listening across the state on our YouTube and Facebook channels. And thank you very much for listening, and let your friends and colleagues know that these recordings will be archived as always, and folks can listen to them after the school day or when work is done and hear the entire news conference then. So first off, we're going to go to Jennifer Kelleher from the Associated Press. Hi, Jennifer. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Thanks.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, so whether or not virtual learning goes forward, will the union allow 12-month non-classroom, non-grade book teachers to be put back into classroom positions? Will the HSTA push back if DOE requires that?
So in the past, when this happened in the spring, a lot of those teachers were able to work it out with the DOE to do telework. The idea was, again, for everything else in our society, and this is something that we've been frustrated with, if it works for every other part of society, why should schools be different? If people can stay home and do their work, then let's make sure that we keep everyone safe, and that's what we're asking for.
Okay, next we have Ashley Mizuo from Hawaii Public Radio.
Thanks. You guys mentioned the teacher shortage being even worse than it ever has been. Do you guys have any numbers or anything else you can share to kind of point to that, and what teachers are leaving most? Is it retirement or those who are coming from the mainland, or both? And then also, do you guys have any numbers as to how many new teachers we're getting this year? I know that usually they are coming from the mainland. That's why. Thanks.
So this creates, So Ashley, this creates all sorts of compounding problems. One of the things we really don't know is, and what we've heard from our teachers, is a lot of teachers are waiting to see what happens if students are going to return face-to-face. And if they return face-to-face, that's when we're concerned they're going to take leave or retire or take action, because they just don't want to put themselves in jeopardy. So the sooner we can make this decision, the more we can make sure that we have enough qualified teachers to go to the classroom. We know statistically that about 2/3 of our new teachers every year come from the mainland. And the other question is, if there's a mad scramble at the beginning of the year because we have this rational amount of teachers leaving, then the question is, where are we going to get these new teachers from? And if they're quarantined, this could be just a disaster. The other concern that we've had is that a lot of our substitute teachers are retired teachers, older teachers that don't want to put themselves at risk either. So while we do not have the exact numbers, we wouldn't know the exact numbers until it's actually face-to-face, and that's what we're trying to avoid. Melissa, is there anything you wanted to add to that one?
No, absolutely. Everything you've said.
Okay, thank you. And next we go to Ben Gutierrez from Hawaii News Now. Ben.
Hey, Corey or Osa, from what I understand, this particular request for 100% distance learning, this is for the entire state, because we had kind of indicated earlier or had heard earlier that it might just be for Oahu just because of the amount of cases.
Yes, so we are asking that it's 100% distance learning for the entire state. We've already seen our neighbor island mayors, and they understand this crisis and this pandemic, and they do not want the neighbor islands to have the same thing that's happening right now on Oahu. They're trying to make sure that we keep it safe. And so they're asking for 100% distance learning on the neighbor islands as well. That is something we support. And what we've seen across the entire nation now is that many schools are going to distance learning. There was a picture that came out of North Paulding High School in Georgia, where the students were packed in together. And seeing a situation like that is against everything that we know is common sense, and that's something that we're trying to avoid.
Okay, thanks, Ben. And next, Jen Boniza from KHON2.
Hi, Corey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, go ahead.
In the past, they've said that for distance learning K through 5, it's not really set up for kids in that age group. Do you have any idea how this might be handled if we do have to go to distance learning 100% through the first quarter?
So everyone knows that face-to-face learning is better. I mean, no one denies that. But just because they're young doesn't mean that they can't get sick. Or what we've seen now through recent research is that young children can actually contain more of the coronavirus in their nose than adults do. And in a state where we have the most multi-generational homes, of course we would want to do face-to-face, it's just not gonna work. Right now, our teachers across the state are getting trained and working on distance learning. We are hoping to learn from the mistakes of the spring and trying to make it better, so that we can do the best that we can. And again, this is not our first choice, but the idea is we want to keep learning going on, try to do the best that we can. And there are some benefits during this pandemic of doing online. If we can do online and do distance learning, then the children will not have to wear their face masks the entire day. For the older kids, one of the great techniques that we're using is breakout rooms, so they can still use collaborative learning and be able to work together on this one. So, just with the current situation. And the other thing that we can do, actually, I want to point this out too, is we can do learning every single day. Right now, say at my daughter's school at Campbell High, they're planning an A, B, C, and D schedule, which means right now the kids would only begin learning potentially every 4th day. If we go to full distance learning, that means that more content can happen and more learning can occur.
I think one of the other issues is that the department is pushing a lot of our students onto online education through mainland companies. They really need that one-to-one with their teacher to get the best experience, the best educational experience that they can.
Okay, and next, Blaze Lovell from Civil Beat. Hi, Blaze.
Hi, Corey, I was just wondering, given that the teachers and students are spending the last couple of weeks getting ready to return to in-person classes, have you heard how ready teachers are if they are able to move to online or distance?
So part of the reason why we wanted these 2 weeks is for teachers to get trained on what we consider the eventuality that it was going to be distance learning. So teachers have been having one eye towards, in-class teaching, the other one towards distance learning. But we hope the governor, the superintendent, the Board of Education, and the Department of Health will make a decision as soon as possible. That will give our teachers more time to plan and get ready. I cannot tell you what we've heard about the stress that our teachers are under right now. trying to do everything right now. And what we've seen from our polling data is that in the spring, our teachers were working harder than ever. People just think you can stand up in front of a screen and teach. It is not. It's completely redoing lessons, and it's harder for our teachers. And so I think that we need to make this decision quickly so that they can start planning and try to give as best of an educational environment to our students as possible.
Okay, and next, Annalisa Burgos from KITV4 Island News.
Yeah, so just for my clarification, now that this vote has happened, what is the next step? So you're going to take this to the board, they're going to vote, the governor has to make an announcement. Like, how does this work?
So we've done this a couple of times now. In the spring, they wanted to open the schools and HSTA came out for closing them. And I was really happy the governor finally made the decision to do that. We are hoping the governor will make the same decision this time. We've had to go to the Board of Education twice. And in each case, the Board of Education has stepped up, recognizing the health and safety of our keiki. Originally, that was for maintaining the 6 feet distance and the face mask use, and then recently to give 2 weeks. So we are hoping to advocate, and in that last Board of Education meeting, over 4,000 people sent in testimony. I believe that's probably the highest in the Board of Education history in that case. So we're hoping that the community will be listened to, that our teachers will be listened to, and that appropriate and fast action will take place.
So he has to be the one to really sign off on this. There's no more Board of Education, or a superintendent can't make this decision on her own as well?
So we believe it's the governor has the power to do this. We also believe the Board of Education, the superintendent, has a choice to do this too. And I do not want to discount. We've asked the Department of Health to step up. In other places across the country, they have put out very specific guidance of when schools should be safe. And we have not seen any written guidance. And this has been an extremely frustrating process. And this is something that should be done by the Department of Health.
Okay, so just to confirm, sorry, because I have 2 kids in public school too, Corey. So I want to know, so is this for sure? Like, are my children going to, today, do we know that it's going to be distance learning, or do I have to wait until I hear something from the governor? You know what I mean? Like, what am I waiting for here?
Yeah, so unfortunately, HSTA does not have that power. We can advocate for our teachers on behalf of our keiki and our community, but it's going to still have to be a governor's decision.
Can I also say that?
Oh, go ahead.
That the Board of Education expressly said that any parent who feels uncomfortable doesn't have to send their child to school and can opt for a 100% distance option. So we have a lot of parents that have done that. In fact, we have so many that are opting for that opportunity that schools are saying now that they don't have enough space, that students are having to go on a wait list to get online learning, and that's just not right either.
Okay, so if no action is taken, we continue with the schedule that was outlined for each of our schools.
Yeah, so if the governor, the Board of Education, the superintendent do not take action, then we head towards a crisis on August 17th. We are going to do it, and then I want to point out that there was a Texas study that was reported in the New York Times. And based on old numbers, the expectation was that they were looking at hundreds of cases on the first day of school. At my school alone at Campbell High School, which is the largest high school in the state, the numbers would have suggested that there would have been 6 cases on the first day. And that's what we're heading towards if we do not take immediate action.
Thanks, Annalisa. And we'll get to our second round in a second. And Vicky Viotti from the Honolulu Star Advertiser has a question in the chat, which I will ask, and then we'll get to our other folks for round 2. Vicky wants to know what provisions would be made for poorer students who have limited online access if we go all distance learning.
The sad part is this, and this is something that shows the great inequity of our system before it began. Over half of our students in our public schools are already Title I. So what we did in the spring, and we commend the Department of Education and the state for doing this, is they opened up our cafeterias to make sure there was food available for those students. But just because you're poor does not mean you're impervious to this coronavirus. And just because you're poor, you should not be put into an unhealthy situation. We recognize the difficulty of the situation. The Department of Education has been working with schools to try to make sure that students have computers. And at some point, we've always said that there's probably going to be a breakout and the schools are going to be closed. And they've been working during the summer to try to deal with this. It's not going to be perfect, but we hope for that is a better situation.
Okay, now we're going to get to some round 2 questions. We're going to start off with Jennifer Kelleher from the AP.
Hi, thank you. So some teachers are asking if 100% distance learning is allowed, will they be required to be on campus? And some teachers want access to campus because they have tools in their classrooms.
Yeah, so we want to be able to give teachers that flexibility. Some teachers, it's going to be better for them to be able to work at home. It's actually being able to help out the school. What we've seen in this past week when we've had to do a lot of video conferencing is that schools just don't have the capacity. And so the concern is by doing distance learning, it's going to allow some of that capacity to be done from home. It's also going to limit the amount of teachers on campus. I heard from a teacher recently, and their concern was there's 50 teachers expected to share 2 bathrooms. How do you expect to maintain a healthy and safe environment when that occurs? But there are other teachers that do not have internet capacity at home and would prefer to be able to go to the classroom and to be able to access material. So that is we're hoping that the department will have some flexibility to allow that to occur for our teachers.
Okay, and next we go back to Ben Gutierrez from HNN.
Hi. In the spring, when distance learning was done, it was sort of had to be thrown together on short notice just because of what the situation was. And I believe that as a result, the number of students who participated was on the low side. Not everybody could participate either because they didn't have the equipment or just didn't. What ways would there be, along with the, I guess the teacher training that's going on right now will help, but what other tools or ways can we ensure that more students or as many students as possible can take part in distance learning and learn?
So the first thing is this, like I said before, there is assumption that all teachers know how to do an online platform immediately, and they do not. So they're getting trained on this. Number 2, we're going to be expecting attendance of our students to be able to go on, and we'll be monitoring that. Number 3, this will be graded this time, so that the idea is that grading will occur, and hopefully that will motivate people as well. It's not going to be perfect. Again, it's not the situation that we would ask for, but we hope that we've learned from the situation and do it better this time.
And Ashley Mizuo from Hawaii Public Radio.
Thanks. So I've been seeing some things on Twitter or hearing anecdotally that maybe the distance learning modules that have been sent out to the teachers for training maybe haven't really been up to par or not exactly what people are expecting. Can you kind of touch on that and what you think needs to be done maybe to improve that?
Yeah, we've heard that from a lot of our teachers too, that some of it was just thrown together last moment. It was just like YouTube videos. Our teachers some teachers have found some benefit in some of it, but not all of it, of course. The one thing that they've been asking for is any time. If our hopes that we close until at least the first quarter are realized, they're going to have to put together packets and information from our students, and that can be done overnight. That's why if the superintendent and the governor would make a decision quickly, that means that next week our teachers could really start, diving in and putting their stuff together. Osa, did you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, the superintendent said basically that this week would be state level training, and next week should be all school level training. So hopefully that will help our teachers, giving them that time that they need in order to figure things out. There are so many more resources available now than were available in March when this thing happened. We have a bunch of our teachers here in Hawaii who put together networks to be able to help each other, and we're very thankful for them. So they just need that extra time to be able to sort things out and be prepared to teach our students 100% virtual on August 17th.
Okay, and we're going to go back to Blaze Lovell from Civil Beat.
Hi, all. One follow-up question. Say the governor and the BOE don't act to move to distance learning. Is there a possibility the union would call for pushing the start of the school year back again?
So there's not a lot of time, Blaze, for that. We are hoping that the Board of Education will have a meeting, hopefully next week, to be able to deal with these issues. I think at this point, the biggest thing we can ask is for parents and our teachers and our students and our community to advocate. We have been successful in the past in that, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Okay, Blaze, thank you. And from Jennifer Kelleher at AP.
Sorry, just wanted to clarify. So will 12-month teachers be pulled in to help with online teaching?
So as I understand it right now, there have been, in some instances, realignment of positions for teachers. One of the most difficult things that we've been facing, Jennifer, is that some teachers have been, because of their age or underlying health conditions, have actually asked for accommodations to be able to do telework or to do virtual learning and have been turned down. In some schools, what they've done is work with 12-month teachers to maybe potentially reassign them to teaching positions so that teachers that did have underlying health conditions could be moved to, say, positions that were not directly working with students. So it has happened. It's not consistent across the system, and it's being done, I guess, on a position by position basis.
Yeah, school by school, this is happening possibly. I know that at some schools, maybe the libraries are now closed. So the librarian is being reassigned to do maybe this online type instruction or these online programs, just managing the students who are enrolled in the online already.
Okay, and one last question from Annalisa Burgos from KITV4.
Yes, thanks, Keoki. So just for the teacher training, you guys were saying that they are undergoing that now. Is there going to be kind of a set of standards for teachers when they go into this going forward? The reason why I ask is because I know depending on this class, some of them didn't, one of my children didn't have virtual, like face-to-face through Zoom or some sort of, online interaction with the class, which I thought was really helpful. But I don't know if there's going to be a across the board standard. Sorry, I'm getting a call. If there's going to be a across the board, maybe requiring that kind of interaction from each student or from each. That was really helpful, especially since my children are in elementary school, to see other children and to see their teacher.
Yeah, so that's what we really hope with distance learning, is that can be on a daily basis with their teachers and their students so they can all see each other. The standards have not gone away, actually. In the spring when we did this, it was just supposed to be enrichment work. But the intent would be for this one is that if we do go to distance learning, that it would be that we would start off the school year the way we always do it, just with the expectations that we are not doing it face-to-face, but doing it through distance learning.
Okay, thanks so much, Annalisa, and thanks to the members of the media for joining us today, and thanks to our HSTA members, parents, and other community folks across the state for listening today. Again, if you join this late and want to see the whole thing again, it's archived and will be available on HSTA's Facebook page as well as our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Be safe out there. Aloha. Ahui ho.
Thank you all.